devoted by the ex-chairman of PAC, that is, Mr. Chen Zhenying, and members of PAC. The government accepts PAC's various recommendations and sets out in detail in the government's minutes the specific responses of the relevant bureaus and departments. The PAC conducted public hearings on the chapters on highways departments, maintenance of public footpaths, and safeguarding employees' rights and benefits under labor laws. I would like to highlight the key measures taken and progress made by the government and relevant organizations in response to the recommendation. In response to the comments and recommendations of PAC and the audit report on the maintenance of public footpaths, the Highways Department has taken various measures to keep the public footpaths in good condition and provide a safe walking environment for pedestrians. In respect of the project estimates, the Highways Department will further verify the actual site conditions and constraints in order to improve the accuracy of the project's estimates for future rehabilitation projects. Moreover, the Highways Department will regularly review the completed projects funded by block allocation under the Capital Works Reserve Fund and finalize and delete the respective accounts as early as practicable for releasing the unused funds in a timely manner. With regard to the inspection and routine maintenance works of public footpaths, the Highways Department will continue to closely monitor the performance of the contractors to ensure the contractors will record all defects identified during routine inspections and detailed inspections, and will complete the rectification works in a timely manner in accordance with the relevant requirements. If any non-compliance in the inspection or maintenance works is identified, the Highways Department will issue default notices to the contractors and deduct the contract payments according to the contractual terms. As regards the submission of dimension books, if a contractor fails to submit the dimension book within 90 days upon the completion of a works order and without justifiable reasons, the Highways Department may recover all the previous interim payments under the works order from the contractor in accordance with the contract provisions. This is to ensure that there will be no overpayment. Moreover, Highways Department has added a standing discussion item in the regular progress meetings with the contractors to monitor the submission of dimension books. To enhance work efficiency through the application of innovative technologies, the Highways Department commenced the development of a new digital management system in April 2022 for completion in the fourth quarter of year 2022 for trial. With the new system in place, the management of repair and maintenance works will be digitalized, and the processing time on paperwork will be reduced, thereby allowing more resources to be redeployed for strengthening the supervision of the contractor's road maintenance works. On the labor rights front, the Labor Department attaches great importance to safeguarding employees' statutory employment rights and benefits, and adopts a multi-pronged strategy of conducting workplace inspections, taking out prosecutions against breaches of labor laws, processing employees' compensation claims and applications to the protection of wages on insolvency fund, and staging publicity activities, etc. Meanwhile, the Labor Department has adopted enhanced measures, including the completion of the review of the PWIF coverage and business registration levy rates, and the implementation of the recommendations on PWIF's recovery of ex gratia payments from employers, with a view to safeguarding employees' employment rights and benefits. The Labor Department has also implemented various measures to shorten the time required for processing PWIF applications and disbursing ex gratia payments to qualified applicants. The PWIF board has agreed to the proposal to provide legal services by the PWIF to assist applicants in filing bankruptcy or winding up petitions against their insolvent employers, which is a prerequisite for releasing ex gratia payments from the PWIF. This measure will save the PWIF applicants from applying for legal aid, which is subject to means testing from the Legal Aid Department. It is envisaged that the processing time of PWIF applications can then be shortened by up to 12 weeks. The Labour Department is pressing ahead with the implementation of this measure within this year. The Labour Department will continue to explore practicable ways to take forward the other recommendations, such as further enhancing the effectiveness of workplace inspections so as to strengthen the protection of employees' statutory employment rights and benefits. President, I would like to thank the PAC again for its efforts and suggestions. The concerned bureaus and departments will strictly adhere to their responses and implement improvement measures as set out in the government's minutes. Thank you, President.
Questions. Question 1, the Honourable Kenneth Fogg. Thank you, President. The National 14th Five-Year Plan has expressed clear support for Hong Kong to develop into an East-Meets-West Centre for International Cultural Exchange. To tie in with the plan, will the government inform this Council, 1, whether it will formulate a long-term development blueprint on arts and culture and consider, upon drawing references from the practice of the Korea Creative Content Agency, setting up a statutory body dedicated to the management and coordination of arts and cultural policies so as to actively take forward the development of the industries and integrate the industry as a highly efficient market, thereby promoting Chinese culture overseas. 2, as their views that there is a shortage of talents in Hong Kong's arts industry, and the government should adopt a twin-track measure for nurturing local talents on the one hand, and reviewing the schemes for importing relevant talents from outside Hong Kong on the other. Of the government's short, medium, and long-term measures in place to attract outstanding mainland and overseas talents in the arts industry to come to Hong Kong. And 3, as their views that the popularization of culture is the foundation for establishing a cultural hub, whether the government will consider increasing the number of courses on experiencing and appreciating arts and culture in primary and secondary schools, and setting standard learning hours and enhancing teachers' qualifications for such courses. If so, the details, if not, the reasons for that. Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism. President. The National 14th Five-Year Plan has expressed clear support for Hong Kong to develop into an East-Meets-West Centre for International Cultural Exchange. This has not only manifested our country's expectation of Hong Kong, but also given full recognition to the flourishing and diverse growth of arts, culture, and creative industries in Hong Kong for the past few years, and provided the sector with continuous development opportunities. The government has been committed to developing arts, culture, and creative industries and has formulated clear policies for that. At the same time, the government has formulated strategic directions for and providing substantial funding to support the development of Hong Kong into an East-Meets-West Centre for International Cultural Exchange. In 2022-23, the government's recurring expenditure on arts and cultural development exceeds $5.9 billion, representing an almost 40% increase over the $4.3 billion in 2017-18. My reply to the 3 parts of questions raised by Mr. Fogg is as follows. As I've also mentioned, the government has all along clear policies as well as supporting measures and resources in place for the development of the arts, culture, and creative industries. In 2009, the government set up Create Hong Kong to provide dedicated support to promote the 8 major creative industries in Hong Kong, including film, digital, entertainment, advertising, publishing and printing industries, etc. There are both similarities and differences between the areas of work of Create Hong Kong and the Korea Creative Content Agency, or KOCCA, mentioned in the question. For example, Create Hong Kong is responsible for supporting both the film and television industries, while the work of COCA does not cover the film industry. As interactive exchanges and learning with other jurisdictions are essential for the development of these industries, the Culture, Sports and Tourism Bureau recently sent delegates to Korea for in-person exchanges with different arts and culture organizations, including COCA, in September this year. We'll continue to tap into the experience of both sides in the development of these industries, connect with the industries and promote their development. The government has strived to create a comprehensive ecosystem for arts, culture, and creative industries. Hong Kong is the home base of a number of globally acclaimed business platforms for arts, culture, and creative industries, including some famous global visual arts exhibitions, as well as the Hong Kong International Film and TV Market, which provides the film industry with business opportunities. Furthermore, we will organize the first Hong Kong Performing Arts Market in 2024, which will serve as an important platform for performing arts groups and practitioners to find business or collaboration opportunities and foster more favorable conditions for industry building. As announced in the policy address, I will establish the Culture Commission to offer advice and recommendations on ways to enhance the policies on the development of these industries and to assist in formulating a blueprint for arts and culture and creative industries development so as to refine our policy on and create the ecosystem for these industries. Talents have always been a crucial element in the development of arts, culture, and creative industries. Apart from nurturing talents to provide opportunities and career pathways for young people aspiring to join these industries will have to, at the same time, attract talents and draw together talents of different cultural backgrounds to provide fertile training ground for further elevation of the standard of these industries. On nurturing talents, it is promulgated in this year's policy address that the Hong Kong Academy for Performing Arts should examine its positioning and role in nurturing the arts and cultural talents in Hong Kong, even the GBA in the long run, and consider establishing another campus in the northern metropolis and raising the population or proportion of non-local talents and students. The PA also announced the provision of funding support for emerging arts groups and artists that have never received public subsidies, as well as implementation of a new program to sponsor graduates to undertake internships in the West Kowloon's Cultural District and arts groups so as to facilitate the entry to the industries after graduation. As regards attracting overseas talents, creative industries and performing arts professionals around the world are eligible for immigration facilitation under the Quality Migrant Admission Scheme, QMAS. Furthermore, under the pilot scheme on immigration facilitation of visitors participating in short-term activities on designated sectors implemented since June 2022, immigration facilities were provided to short-term visitors participating in arts and cultural activities organized by authorized host organizations in Hong Kong through waiving the requirement to apply for employment visas, visa permits, thereby attracting more high-caliber arts talents from overseas to Hong Kong. The initiatives to compete for talents as proposed in the PA this year, which include relaxing the stay arrangements under the immigration arrangements for non-local graduates, suspend the annual quota under QMAS, and establish the Talents Service Unit to further attract and facilitate talents in arts, culture, and creative industries to work in Hong Kong. Arts culture education is an integral part of primary and secondary school curriculum and is one of the 8 key learning areas. The current curriculum guides stipulate the learning time for arts education and that schools should, for instance, allocate 10 to 15% and 8 to 10% of the total lesson time to arts education in the primary and secondary school levels, respectively. Schools can also flexibly allocate a certain percentage of total lesson time, music and visual arts, which include learning elements of experiencing and appreciating arts and culture, are generally offered as subjects in primary and secondary schools. Schools generally provide students with exposure to other arts forms such as drama, media arts, and dance outside classroom through live-wide learning to organically integrate learning and teaching activities within and beyond lessons. Many schools arrange students to visit exhibitions and museums, attend arts performances, and participate in orchestras, inter-school competitions, and community arts activities, etc. Besides, Leisure and Cultural Services Department and arts organizations also organize cultural and arts educational programs and activities. Regarding teacher training, the Education Bureau has been maintaining close contact with teacher education universities to review the provision of subjects and intake places according to the needs of society. Furthermore, teaching education universities will also update the content of the program so as to meet the needs for continuous development of society and education. Thank you, Mr. Fogg. I thank the Secretary for his reply. Indeed, the government has been increasing spending on arts and cultural development, and there are also policy initiatives in the current PA. However, we should spend these resources in a more targeted and precise manner. Now, in the 20th Congress report, it is said that we must insist on using technology, and digital economy is one of the priority areas for the country's further development. In May, the State Council also issued a very comprehensive document on promotion of technology and digital economy and arts and culture. However, we are still just starting to apply technology. We're not really implementing digitalization. And some Chinese state-owned enterprises have gone to Macau to promote projects on integration of digital and physical exhibits. So I'd like to know whether we've got any plan in this regard so that Hong Kong can be an East-Meets-West Center for International Cultural Exchange with digital characteristics. Mr. Fogg, your supplementary doesn't tally with your main question, because your question is about how Hong Kong can develop into an East-Meets-West Center for International Cultural Exchange. Still, I see if the Secretary wants to respond. Thank you, President. Indeed, the country has been moving, starting digitalization in sports and arts, and in fact, in other aspects, the country is also moving towards this direction. In Hong Kong, we have a similar trend. In arts in particular, we're promoting the integration of arts and technology. Of course, there is more to digitalization. We should enhance creativity through the use of technology, so that by means of new technology, arts creation can be expanded and extended to provide different experiences and feeling for the audience. The administration has launched many programs providing resources for the creative industries and also the arts and cultural sector for development in this area. We are willing to proceed further, and we are happy to discuss with members who are interested in this area to see what we can do. Professor Lau Chi-Pang. Thank you, President. I agree with the question asked by Mr. Kenneth Fogg. Now, when it comes to Hong Kong becoming an East-Meets-West Center for International Cultural Exchange, now in point 3 of the Secretary's reply, arts education in school, of course, were given a framework by the Secretary. But on the nurturing of Chinese and Western cultures, shouldn't we have a focus? We are a special administrative region under the PRC, so we should first nurture our students' understanding in Chinese culture, and then we should also nurture or educate our students on local Hong Kong culture. So, with regard to training for our arts teachers and also their practice in schools, I'd like to know the relative time or proportion they devote to Western and Eastern cultures respectively. Secretary. Well, as I will say a few words, and then the Deputy Secretary for Education can supplement. Now, for cultural exchange, a center of cultural exchange for East and West. Now, Hong Kong is a place or meeting point for different cultures. Hong Kong has always been part of the country, and with a long history of being integrated with the culture of the country. It's just that due to some reasons, for a century or so, we have been deeply influenced by Western culture. And so this is a place where the East meets West. The policy address has got a number of measures to promote Chinese culture. Now, for arts groups, if they have support of arts fund in the country, we will support their going out to perform, and we're going to organize more Chinese opera events and also Chinese Cultural Week to enhance people's understanding of the country's development. And we should find opportunity to promote our grand Chinese culture through Hong Kong. As regards teacher training, can the Deputy Secretary for Education supplement, please? Deputy Secretary for Education. Under Secretary for Education. Now, for the promotion of Chinese culture in schools, Mr. Yang, in his reply, mentioned music and visual arts and sports. In fact, in Chinese language subject and Chinese history subject, schools are helping students to enhance their interest of Chinese culture. When it comes to arts, in addition to curriculum within schools, now for 40 years, we have been organizing a students' visual arts exhibition. And in the light of latest development in arts education, we have added many more prizes and subsidies for learning of Chinese calligraphy. We have got a grand prize for Chinese calligraphy and paintings to enhance students' understanding of Chinese culture and also to nurture in them a sense of national identity. Colleagues in the arts education group work with different museums, including the recently opened museum, have got collaboration programs to enhance students' understanding of Chinese culture. Teacher training will also support this objective. Dr. Simon Lee, Dr. Hui Simon Lee. Mr. Dominic Lee, or rather, Dr. Hui Lee should go first. Thank you, President. In recent years, we are greatly promoting cultural exchanges. Now, apart from performing arts, in our universities, we have also got relevant programs, including visual arts program and then promotion of arts, culture, and creation. I'd like to ask the Secretary supporting measures in this area, because when we talk about our development in this area, we focus on certain aspects only. And we know that this is not an easy task because the promotion of arts and culture is very wide. I'd like to know what are we doing in other areas to support this direction. Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism. Thank you, President. In my main reply, I mentioned that in 2009, we set up the Create Hong Kong. Create Hong Kong do not just focus on performing arts. It also includes films, publishing, advertising. Publishing would include comics and works. They can be promoted through activities of Create Hong Kong. Create Hong Kong will engage in more interdisciplinary collaboration. For instance, literary works, can they collaborate with films and comics so that they can leverage on the creativity of one another and do more. This is what we are doing in promoting literary arts. And in universities, apart from literary arts creation, there is also visual arts. As mentioned in my main reply, in addition to exhibitions, we are trying to set up exhibition platforms for visual arts. For instance, the Basel Art Festival in Hong Kong every March. Many artists will bring their works to Hong Kong, and local artists will also showcase their works. So that offers an opportunity not just for performing arts, but other forms of creation and arts can also be exhibited Mr. Dominic Lee. The 15th five-year plan supports Hong Kong to become an East-West Center for international cultural exchange. So it is natural that the government is spending more to attain this target. But then, when it comes to cultural exchange activities, we have many commercially successful examples. The government's mentality is just to provide resources. We don't see commercialization. Take the Cultural Museum in WKC, the example, it incurred a loss of $78 million last year. So how can you ensure that such cultural exchange would be commercialized and then we can have a successful business case? Secretary. Well, in this year's policy address, the CE mentioned a number of times the issue of commercialization. We are setting up the Cultural Commission. One of the plan is to fine-tune our development of arts, culture, and creative industries and to formulate a blueprint for development of these industries. So we really want to do better in terms of commercialization. I just mentioned the Art Basel, which is also a platform for trading of artworks. In 2024, we're going to host the first Hong Kong Performing Arts Market. This is a platform for performing arts groups and practitioners to come together in Hong Kong for exchange and for exhibition so that there can be commercial opportunities. We do set a lot of store by commercialization of these industries, and therefore we plan to host a popular arts festival. As we all know, popular arts are an integral part of our culture. Popular arts can also drive economic growth. In the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, our popular culture back then covering music and TV and films made us a leader in Asia, and they were an important industry of Hong Kong. So we will review our success back then and we will try to move forward, and we want to improve commercialization. Thank you.
Question number 2, Ms. Starry Lee. President, earlier on, online employment frauds involving sending people down the river were uncovered in a number of Southeast Asian countries and have aroused concerns about the online and telephone frauds. According to the police, online frauds are among the fastest growing crimes in recent years. The number from January to July this year rose by more than 60% compared with the same period last year. In this connection, we've government informed this council one of the following total numbers in each of the past 5 years regarding online and telephone frauds, including frauds involving sending people down the river, the number of reports and requests for assistance, the natures, the amount of money involved, the number arrested, the age distribution, and the number being prosecuted, and the penalties. 2, in respect of combating these unbridled crimes, whether it has taken effective measures at the legislative and law enforcement levels, and whether it will expeditiously set up task force to study the punitive measures to curb such crimes. And 3, whether it has cooperated with the international community to combat and crack down on such cunning in transnational deception syndicates, whether it will step up evidence collection through technology to grasp information, explore with the communications authority and local telecom operators, to strengthen regulation of telephone calls from overseas, as well as to make it easier for people to identify overseas cause? If so, of the details. If not, why not? Secretary for Security. President, deception is a serious offense regardless of how it is committed. Stern enforcement actions will be taken as long as there is illegality. The police have been combating different types of deception through various means like law enforcement, multi-agency cooperation, intelligence analysis, cross-boundary collaboration, and publicity and education. My reply is as follows. 1. In the past 5 years, there was a marked increase of deception cases, rising from 8,372 in 2018 to 19,249 in 2021, or 130% increase, or 10,877 cases. The statistics are compiled on the basis of the number of cases. There are 19,444 deception cases in the first 3 quarters of 2022, or 39.7% increase compared with the same period last year, involving $3.3 billion. Over 70% of the cases were related to online fraud. The overall trend are set out in Annex 1. As regards arrested persons, a total of 8,031 persons were arrested for deception between 18 and 21. Generally speaking, they would be prosecuted for fraud or obtaining property by deception under the theft ordinance. Some may also be prosecuted for dealing with property known or reasonably believed to represent proceeds of an indictable offense, i.e. the money laundering offense, under the Organized and Serious Crimes Ordinance. The numbers of prosecuted and convicted persons are maintained in accordance with the offense involved. A total of 1,541 people were prosecuted for offenses under the theft ordinance between 2018 and 2021. Among them, 1,290 were convicted, with imprisonment being 10 years, being the highest. Regarding the incidents in which Hong Kong residents were suspected to have been lured to Southeast Asian countries and detained to engage in illegal work, the modus operandi is different from previous job scams. Law enforcement agencies received sporadic requests for assistance since early 2022 till July, 15 in total, and with 28 requests for assistance being received in August alone. So far, LEAs have received 46 requests. In mid-August, the SB set up a dedicated task force to coordinate follow-up actions. So far, 40 are confirmed to be safe, and among them 30 have returned with assistance of LEAs, and 7 do not require further assistance. The dedicated task force is actively assisting the remaining 3 to return to Hong Kong. The OCTB has taken up the investigation. So far, 8 males and 2 females between 17 and 51 in age were arrested for conspiracy to defraud. Among them, 3 have been charged. There are clear legal provisions to combat fraudulent activities. Any person who commits fraud under Section 16A of the Theft Ordinance is liable to imprisonment of 14 years, while any person who is charged with obtaining property by deception under Section 17 is liable to 10 years imprisonment. In addition, any person charged with dealing with property known or believed to represent proceeds of an indictable offense under Section 25 of the Organized and Serious Crimes Ordinance for proceeds of deception is liable to deception of 14 years and a fine of $5 million. Combating quick cash crime is one of the police's priorities. The focus in this regard includes the Anti-Deception Coordination Center, or ADCC, which operates round the clock. In the first 3 quarters, the ADCC prevented victims of over 400 cases from wiring money to fraudsters and intercepted $1 billion before money reached scammers. Police have set up task forces to tackle deceptions, including investment fraud focus group, telephone deception focus group, technology crime division, which handles online deception. The SB also set up the task force on employment fraud in Southeast Asian countries. Police have all along been tackling deception by intelligence-led operations. In the first 3 quarters, police have neutralized multiple deception syndicates, arresting 650 people, involving $1.4 billion. Targeting scammers who make use of technology to defraud, the police will leverage the newly established e-hub to enhance the efficiency of investigation through big data analytics. Police also launched one-stop engine, a scam meter. In September this year, members of the public can enter suspicious phone numbers and online platforms to identify fraud and online pitfalls. Targeting syndicated and transboundary scams, police will continue to cooperate with the mainland and overseas LEAs to combat deception. The police have seconded an officer to the Interpol Global Complex for Innovation in Singapore, through which police cooperate with Interpol to combat cross-boundary technology crime. OFCA has been adopting a multi-pronged approach to safeguard the integrity of the telecom system and the security of the communication network, including the implementation of the real name registration for SIM cards to prevent and assist in investigation of crimes that make use of SIM cards. Currently, a plus sign is inserted in the calling number display of mobile phones to alert people of such calls. To further enhance their work, the OFCA, the police, and the mobile network operators set up a working group to formulate measures against telephone deception in September. Measures discussed include adopting applications to display specific markers in the calling number display on suspicious calls to help filter suspicious calls, as well as blocking suspicious calls. The government will enhance publicity and education. The public should stay alert, do not trust online or telephone messages lightly, and fall prey to scammers. Thank you. Mr. Lee, President, the government or the Bureau has done so much work in this regard, but from the numbers, now you're telling us the overall deception numbers, but I'm sure that these figures originate from online fraud. In the first paragraph, it said that between 18 to 2021, you've seen an increase of 130%. In 2022, for the first 3 quarters, 40% increase has been registered. This is astonishing. Secretary, online scams are everywhere. People are posing as police, post office, health department. They also pose as the financial secretary. We've had received a lot of messages, telephones, emails. I'm sure the government officials have received similar things as well. We find these really disruptive. And how can we help the senior folks? And they are worried about their personal data being stolen. If there is any link in the WhatsApp or in the email, people don't really want to see them because they're worried about them being fake information. The chief executive's philosophy is result-oriented. I know you've done a lot, but from the numbers, they are on the rise. I'm challenging you, Mr. Secretary, when you look at other jurisdictions and also when you're looking at the legislation, how confident are you that all these crimes, not least the online deception and scams, will be reversed so the people will be setting their mind at ease? Secretary. Thank you, President. We'd like to see the crime figures in decline. Now, we have seen a sharp increase in the number of online frauds. We'd like to see a decline, indeed. But looking at the development of technology, if you look at the numbers this year, for the first 9 months this year, we've seen an increase of 4.4% or 5,000 cases. Now, these have to do with fraud. So the trend of the crime is moving on from burglary and conventional crimes to fraud. This is very much a trend. And we would certainly do everything we possibly can to combat these crimes. Between January and September, we have arrested 160 people, and we have intercepted $1 billion and intercepted in many, many cases. However hard we try, we still cannot stamp out these cases. So we are devoting a lot of work in the area of publicity. And we look at the profile of the victims. We do this through television and radio, and we're also doing the publicity on the social media platform. We're also going to the elderly centers to mount publicity in a way that is easily understood by the senior folks. And we also have the anti-deception week or anti-deception publicity to heighten awareness. People may be doubtful about the incoming calls. We have just put together a server, the scam meter. This is one-stop engine. People can take advantage of this scam meter to check whether the telephone numbers are legitimate or not. And also publicity and education would be important. Mr. Frankie An. Or Mr. Well, during the pandemic, online purchase is the order of the day, and sometimes the sellers would make themselves scarce once they've collected the money. And many of these fraudulent pages are not taken off the shelf. And how are you going to tackle these fraudulent online purchase scams? Secretary, a lot of these have to do with the online frauds, and we notice that it is getting more popular for people to make the purchase online. So we have to remind the members of the public that if they do spot anything suspicious, and for those who purchase online, if they don't have any comments attached to their site, maybe they have erased them deliberately. Now we do patrol these sites, and if there are suspicions, we do put them on the hub. I mean, if we put the information on the server, we will be able to prevent frauds from happening. Once again, if you find anything suspicious, maybe people are selling something on the cheap, you have to be vigilant. Mr. Kissen-Yang, for the first 3 quarters, the number of deception cases stand at 19,444. Involving $3.3 billion. It shows that the SAR government has done not enough regarding anti-deception work. Now, a lot of the deception originates from the overseas SIM card, and with the real name registration, these kind of crimes can certainly be curbed. But we still have a lot of scam calls originating from overseas. So can we intercept these calls from overseas in order to minimize the impact? Or will the SB be able to tackle these scams originating from overseas to guard against the problems? Secretary, the member has got a point. A lot of these scams originated from overseas. So we have done a whole raft of work. We have put a plus sign, that is plus A52, in the caller display, that would heighten people's awareness. And together with OFCA and the mobile network operators, we have set up a working group, and work is in hand to display or to intercept these suspicious calls. And if there is suspicion, we would display specific markers in the caller display to alert people to the suspicious calls. And work is being done, and this will be implemented soon enough. There is some technological work to be done, and there is some setting to be worked out. At this point in time, we can use the one-stop engine. If you are suspicious, you should hold it off to ascertain whether there is any dubious activities going on. Mr. Michael Tin. Secretary, my office has received a lot of scam calls from someone posing to be from the Department of Health. Why don't you stop these scam calls at source? There are some experts who told me that it would be like the bank transfer. If you are minded to investigate, you will be able to go through the layers and trace the source. A lot of these scams originate from overseas, and there are some small network operators that involved. I think the large operators can block these small operators, and we can block them for a couple of days as a penalty, and they will not be prepared to do it. It's just like a KYC in the banking sector. There are so many banks that can achieve that. Now we have a limited number of large mobile network operators. I think the government should talk with the OFCA to make sure that the network operators will stop these small-scale network operators. Will you be imposing the KPI on the large network operators in Hong Kong to intercept these calls? Secretary. Indeed, this is something that's being done. A lot of these fraudulent calls originated from overseas, and they have to do this through the telecommunications network operators in Hong Kong. As I said, we are working on an arrangement together with OFCA and the mobile network operators to intercept the fraudulent calls, and we also provide a specific marker on the caller ID, whether the call comes through the small operators or the large operators. We will have this system to alert people. Mr. Tony J. Thank you, President. Now, I have no doubt about the police resolve in tackling deception. In 2017, the government or the police have set up the ADCC and also designated the hotline 18222. And like the Secretary said, a lot of the task groups have been formed to tackle deception. But the numbers show that the numbers are stubbornly high. I think there is so much more yet to be done. From the members of the public, we learn that some of them have reported these scams to the police, and they find the procedures are really cumbersome, and the reports will not be followed up, and there is no progress with regard to the investigation. Now, will the Secretary make sure that the victims will be kept appraised of the progress of the investigation? Secretary. Yes, we take every single report to the police seriously. For these technological crimes, we've never seen these people, and the collection of money would be by electronic means, and it would be difficult to investigate. Now, we do have the code that we have to keep the victims of the progress of the investigation.
Third question, Mr. Robert Lee. President, According to the information of the Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing Limited, the average daily turnover of the stock market in Hong Kong fell from about $141.2 billion in August last year to about $83.3 billion in August this year. Moreover, the statistics from an accounting firm have shown that in the first 3 quarters of this year, the number of initial public offerings and the amount of funds raised in Hong Kong decreased by 36%, 81% respectively when compared with the same period last year. There are views that the above data has reflected that the current market downturn is unfavorable for small and medium enterprises to seek listing for financing. In this regard, will the government inform this council, one, whether it has plans to provide more flexible, balanced and sustained solutions to broaden avenues for SMEs to seek listing for financing, and if so, if not, the reasons for that. Two, as some members of the financial sector have relayed that since quite a number of listed companies have been affected by the epidemic in recent years, resulting in a sharp drop in revenue, in persistent business loss or disruption to expansion plans, that they have failed to meet the requirements of carrying out the business with a sufficient level of operations under Rule 1324 of the listing rules, and that listing may be suspended. Whether the government will urge HKEX to be more flexible in enforcing the requirements such that thereby assisting such SMEs to maintain the avenues for financing. Three, as there are views that pointing out that the stock trading of quite a number of SMEs has been sluggish after their listing, failing to attract investors' attention and financing institutions to analyze and promote them. And the situation is unfavorable to the development of such enterprises and that their future financing. Whether the government will study the establishment of a more vibrant second market trading system with the higher liquidity, thereby attracting more enterprises to list Hong Kong for financing. Secretary for Financial Services and Treasury. President, thanks for the question from Mr. Lee. In consultation with the SFC and the HKEX, my reply to the issue is as follows. Questions 1 and 3. As a major global listing hub for companies from different jurisdictions, Hong Kong has all along strived to build a vibrant and sustainable fundraising hub regardless of short-term market conditions so as to broaden the channels for enterprises of different types and backgrounds to raise funds while offering a deep and vibrant fundraising platform. Since 2018, we have implemented a series of reforms to the listing regime to facilitate the listing of new economy companies and overseas issuers in Hong Kong, as well as introduce a new listing mechanism for special purpose acquisition companies, thereby expanding the channels for enterprises to raise funds in Hong Kong. As mentioned in the Chief Executive in his policy address last week, we support HKEX to revise the main board listing rules next year to facilitate listing of large-scale special list technology companies that have yet to meet the profit and trading requirements. HKEX is consulting the market on these proposals. In addition, with a view to comprehensively strengthening the competitiveness of Hong Kong as an all-rounded fundraising hub, the policy address also stated that HKEX would explore the revitalizing GEM to serve small and mid-sized issuers, providing a more effective fundraising platform for SMEs. For this purpose, to this end, HKEX has established a dedicated panel under the listing committee to review the functions and positioning of GEM. The work concerned involves many aspects, such as identifying the source of potential issuers which are suitable to raise funds through the small cap market but could not meet the listing requirements of the main board or the existing SME GEM, assessing attractiveness and market liquidity of potential issuers. In other words, whether they could attract investors to hold and trade relevant securities continuously. exploring ways to enhance the liquidity of existing stocks, etc. Meanwhile, HKEX will also proactively make reference to the experience of similar markets in other places, including development of fundraising platforms for SMEs, innovative enterprises in the mainland in recent years, including the Science and Technology Innovation Board of Shanghai, the Chinese of the Shenzhen Stock Exchange, and the Beijing Stock Exchange. HKEX is approaching different stakeholders for views with no predetermined stance on relevant issues. It aims to propose specific measures within the next year. We believe that after the implementation of the above, Hong Kong's listing platform will serve different types of enterprises more effectively. With regard to the second question, apart from striving to enhance the breadth and depth of the securities market, we also attach great importance to improving the quality of listed issuers with a view to safeguarding the interests of the investing public. To address market concerns that such companies had, shell companies had led to the emergence of listed companies which did not have substantial operations of business, resulting in speculative activities and increased risk for market manipulation. HKEX revised Rule 13.24 of the listing rules in October 2019 after a market consultation. The revised rule requires issuers to carry out the business with a sufficient level of operation and have assets of sufficient value to support the operations. When implementing the rule, HKEX will conduct a comprehensive assessment based on the issuer's individual circumstances, including business model, etc., with reference to the practices and standards of the relevant industry. If an issuer's business is only temporarily curtailed or suspended due to market conditions, it will not be considered as a breach of Rule 13.24. If HKEX considers that the issuer has failed to meet the requirements of the comprehensive consideration, it will suspend the relevant share trading in accordance with Rule 6.013 of the listing rules and issue resumption guidance of the issue to the issuer. HKEX will give the issuer up to 18 months to recomply with the requirements according to actual circumstances. If the issuer fails to meet the resumption conditions within the time limit, HKEX will consider delisting of shares. While we consider it necessary to maintain the rule in ensuring market quality and protecting investors' interests in light of the potential impact of the epidemic on trading resumption of some listing issuers, HKEX will handle each case flexibly, having regard to the specified special circumstances arising from the epidemic. Mr. Robert Lee. Thank you. I'd like to ask, when the CE promulgated the policy address, he said that we would try to compete for enterprises and talents, and the market is very competitive. Will we be more aggressive in reducing transaction costs and removing the various barriers so as to promote more activity? Secretary, the question covers a wide range of topics. Firstly, how do we expand the financing channels in the market so that when we attract enterprises and talents, we are ever more successful? Now, the HKEX has already consulted the market on the specialist technology companies becoming listed. Now, this is ongoing, and that has taken place on October 18th, and so we ask all stakeholders, including Mr. Lee, to offer their views. Now, looking at the development of our country, science and technology is very important. That's why on financing, we try to attract more and more high-quality science technology companies to come to Hong Kong. Now, for instance, there are already 80 biotechnology companies listed in Hong Kong. We are already the second largest financing center apart from the U.S. For biotechnology companies. So we do have an edge in this regard. Mr. Wong Chun-shek. President, recently, the Hong Kong stock market experienced extreme ups and downs. The uncertainties globally has led to a sharp drop in transaction volume, and many service companies have been affected. Now, the GEM has seen almost zero new listings. Many SMEs have been affected. In the policy address last week, the CE said that we need to revitalize GEM. Now, it's a good idea. Now, I'd like to ask the government. Now, when the government handled the GEM in the past 20 years, what experience has it learned so that we can put more weight on development rather than regulation so that we have more room for SMEs to develop in Hong Kong? Secretary. Now, Mr. Wong's question is very appropriate. Now, how do we revitalize a market? Now, we have certain experiences running the GEM. Now, the GEM has undergone several rounds of reforms. In the beginning, it's for startups. Now, so its standards were catered to companies with broad prospects. So there were a few quantification standards. So for the intermediaries, they are not sure what were the listing requirements for the SMEs. So when we revitalize the market, as we're going to do, we want to be sure that we know what are the requirements, and the issuers and the intermediaries are also well aware of what we are looking for. So we have to communicate with the market. Secondly, which is also very important, in order to have liquidity and a revitalized market, we need dovetailing of supply and demand. Now, on the demand side, on the side of investors, we have to know their requirements. Now, this special task force under HAEX, when it studies the revitalization of GEM and its positioning, we have to examine the investors' stance, their willingness to hold and trade in securities. So we want to revitalize the market, a market that serves the SMEs. Mr. Nick Chan. I'd like to follow up on revitalizing the GEM. Now, will the government reconsider the simplifying the mechanism for GEM companies to transfer, to upgrade to the main board once they have reached a certain scale, so that they can be a succession in their funding avenues? As I said in my initial introduction, we are conducting a consultation on revitalization of GEM. We are listening to different views. We hold an open view. Now, whatever the views we receive, we have to examine the quality of the entire market, and we have to safeguard the interests of the public. We don't want to have this shell companies problem that we used to have. So we will listen to views of the market. Mr. Minka, Now, on modifying the listing rules to facilitate the listing by specialist technology companies with little result shown. Now for already commercialized companies, the requirement is $8 billion. For companies not yet fully commercialized, the requirement is $15 billion. Now, will the government adjust this threshold so as to attract more companies with potential to come and list in Hong Kong? Now, looking at the nature of the problem, or looking at reviewing the opinions we received. Now, these high quality investors, they look forward to the future value of the companies concerned. That's why we set these two requirements. Now, when we try to upgrade the quality of the market, we have to protect or understand the needs of the market of the investors. So the companies that are already commercialized, they have already a certain scale of operation, so the requirement is lower than for companies not yet commercialized. So the investors are seeking future returns. So this is, and also we set this higher threshold from the perspective of the market. For companies already commercialized, now these we're talking about the valuation of unicorns. Now, so they already have a certain attraction for investors. Now, right now, we are consulting the market. We welcome the views from all segments of the industry. Mrs. Regina Yip. President, I'm happy that last week the CE in his policy address mentioned that there would be consideration of revitalizing the GEM and letting companies that don't have operation results yet to be listed. Now, I'd like to ask, now the HKEX will complete its study within the next year. Now, what time can we speed it up within the next year? Because the SMEs have been waiting a long time. Now, in the policy address, as Mrs. Yip said, we put this topic in the policy address, showing that we attach much importance to it. Now, of course, we wanted to do it ASAP, but we have to strike a balance because there are many and diverse views. Mrs. Yip has helped to arrange for people from the trade, like the intermediaries, to come and talk to us. Now, we want more people to accept our proposal. So we want to be fast, but we have to strike a balance. Also, the revitalization of GEM is ongoing. We don't have a concrete proposal yet. Now, our concern for SMEs is ever present in our mind. Now, for instance, on the green financing issue recently, we lowered the threshold from $200 million to $100 million. Now, the HKMA just last Monday introduced the mechanism for financial data of SMEs to be provided to banks more easily, so that the banks can have fuller analysis. So we hear Mrs. Yip's views. Mr. Lee Sai-wing. Earlier, I went to ASEAN for a study tour. We found that the SMEs have developed very rapidly in the technology and innovation sector. Many of them are unicorn companies. Now, how do we attract these companies to come to Hong Kong for listing or financing or fundraising? Now, this is in the same vein as earlier questions asked. Now, I went to Bangkok recently on business, and China's Securities Exchange Commission announced that more use can be made of the Hong Kong market. So the funds from the north, from the mainland, are facilitated. Now we want to be able to attract capital from the mainland. Now this is the work that we are going to, part of the work that we're going to do. Now fundraising is not limited to stocks, it's also bonds. Now the renminbi borrowing cost is low right now relative to US dollar. So we welcome issuers of renminbi bonds. Now, some provincial governments and the Shenzhen municipal government have come to Hong Kong for issuing bonds. So we leverage on the motherland's policies.
Question 4, Mr. Chan Yong. Thank you, President. Thank you, Secretary. Well, I would like to talk about actively integrating into GBA development. Please stick to, oh yes. Mr. Chen Yong, please read from the script of your question. On the 1st of July, the President said that we should better integrate into China's overall development and play a role in realizing national rejuvenation. On the same day, the Chief Executive said that Hong Kong and Macau should play our roles and tap into our potentials and to tap into opportunities in industries as well as manpower so that there will be better development. Can the administration tell us that whether there will be official offices, government offices set up in the 9 cities of the mainland GBA? If so, what is the timetable? And to how to improve the functions of Hong Kong government offices on the mainland in order to get a better picture of the latest development on the mainland. Number 3, would they recruit candidates that are familiar with mainland affairs in order to enhance cooperation and liaison with the local government, and so as to get the best picture of the situation and to provide better services to Hong Kong people? President Xi, in his report, said that that better support will be given to Hong Kong and Macau to develop the GBA, so that they will play a greater role in realizing national rejuvenation. Well, there will be a steering group on integration into national Development to be chaired by the Chief Executive with 3 secretaries of departments as deputies. The work of the steering group includes formulating strategic plans for Hong Kong to dovetail with GBA development, proactively forging ahead with development and collaboration, and formulating work plans and priorities with a view to fostering a greater flow of people, goods, capital, and information within the GBA. Under one country, two systems, Hong Kong has the distinctive and prominent advantages of enjoying strong support of the motherland and being closely connected to the world. GBA is the best entry point for Hong Kong to better integrate into the overall development of the country. The Hong Kong SAR government continues to capitalize on Hong Kong's strengths to serve the country's needs and proactively take forward the development of GBA. We will strengthen interconnectivity and make greater contribution to the national development, which will then bring tremendous opportunities and room for our development. My answer to Mr. Chan's question is below. With the support of the central government, the Hong Kong SAR government has proactively taken forward the development of the GBA through efforts at different levels to support Hong Kong residents and enterprises and to make better use of opportunities. It also helps mainland cities of the GBA tap into international markets, leveraging Hong Kong's dual roles in going global and attracting foreign investments. The Guangdong ETO Economic and Trade Office and its Shenzhen Liaison Unit cover 9 mainland cities of the GBA. We jointly promote the development of the GBA and foster development of Hong Kong people and enterprises. To further enhance publicity and promotion work in the GBA mainland cities, as well as the support to Hong Kong people and enterprises there, Guangdong ETO will set up the GBA Development Promotion Center. Through strengthening strategic cooperation with Hong Kong Trade Development Council, Invest Hong Kong, and relevant organizations in the mainland, and by means of providing information and inquiry services, organize seminars and study missions, the promotion center will promote opportunities as well as provide assistance to Hong Kong people and enterprises that are interested in developing in or have already settled in GBA mainland cities. The promotion center will also combine with and utilize the network of the Trade Development Council, GBA Business Support Centers, which will expand to the 9 mainland GBA cities, so as to better understand the development needs of Hong Kong people and enterprises in the mainland GBA cities, strive to assist them in resolving problems they encounter and support them to develop their business. Meanwhile, to enhance the promotion of Hong Kong's dual roles in going global and attracting foreign investment in the GBA, the Promotion Center will make use of different forms of exchanges and promotional activities to encourage mainland talents and enterprises to capitalize on Hong Kong's advantages under the one country, two systems to explore more opportunities. The preparatory work of the center is going smoothly, and the center is expected to launch officially by early next year. In addition, as announced in the policy address this year, dedicated teams for attracting businesses and talents will be set up in mainland offices and overseas ETOs to reach out to target enterprises and talents in the mainland and persuade them to come to Hong Kong. One of the key functions of mainland offices is to maintain liaison with various levels of government in the mainland in order to keep abreast of the latest development at the national and local level, to reflect the concerns and aspirations of Hong Kong people and enterprises in the mainland, as well as to discuss with mainland authorities on the provision of assistance to Hong Kong people and enterprises in distress as required. The Guangdong ETO and its 3 liaison units have all along been proactively liaising with various government agencies in the 5 provinces and regions under its coverage, including the different Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Offices, Development and Reform Commissions, Departments and Commerce, and Departments of Public Security. Both sides from time to time discuss various matters. They cooperate in organizing and participating in various events. Currently, the Guangdong GTO and its mainland counterparts have maintained effective communication, and it's expected that the effort will be further strengthened. Serving as our goal to further strengthen cooperation with mainland authorities, we have set key performance indicators in this year's policy address, where the number of mainland officers organizing visits to mainland authorities and the number of mainland office attending speaking occasions will increase by 15% in 2024 as compared to this year. In addition to maintaining contact and liaison with mainland authorities, mainland officers also report to the Hong Kong SAR government about the latest development in the mainland and facilitate the exchange and collaboration between the two places in trade, investment, and culture. As the head of a mainland office has to represent the Hong Kong SAR government in handling official matters with mainland authorities, as well as to show the financial and legal responsibilities associated with the use of public money and various contractual arrangements, the post holder should thus possess a vast public administrative experience and be familiar with policies, division of labor, and internal cooperation of the SAR government. A senior civil servant with extensive executive experience and ability as the head of a mainland office will ensure the smooth operation and effective discharge of functions of the office. Currently, Guangdong ETO is the official body of the Hong Kong SAR government in the mainland in following up on relevant matters relating to the development of GBA. The post of the Guangdong ETO director is an established permanent civil servant post, filled by an experienced administrative officer at the directorate rank. It's all along been the practice of our government to select a suitable civil servant in terms of seniority and experience to take up the post. In fact, there is an adequate pool of officers within the government who are familiar with mainland affairs. For example, the current Guangdong ETO, the incumbent director, and various deputy directors have working experience on the mainland. But regardless of whether they have worked on the mainland, the duties of the officials nowadays are deeply involved in dovetailing with national strategies and communicating with the mainland. And we have employed local and experienced staff members to work with Hong Kong-based officers to provide better support. Mr. Chen Yong, I'd like to ask, well, we are making all the preparations as needed. We have done more work as compared to what we did before. Of course, opportunities are available to those who are prepared. Because of the epidemic, ETO officials can't even travel to a different city. So their performance of their duties aside, they have encountered difficulties. So you need to give them more support so that they can perform their duties better. And there is the director as well as the deputy. Would you more actively consider recruiting elites with relevant experience? Mr. Chen, you have already asked your question. Thank you. In relation to Mr. Chen's further request that the functions and duties of the ETO should be strengthened, we constantly review the functions of our offices in order to do better. Yes, currently there are epidemic restrictions on the mainland, but apart from the 5 mainland offices, we have liaison office, 11 of them, over different places on the mainland. So we are able to meet the needs in the provision of assistance to Hong Kong people there. We will strengthen our service to better provide services and assistance to Hong Kong people and enterprises. Dr. Hoi Lee. Thank you, President. I'm happy to see that in the promotion of development of GBA and assistance to Hong Kong people who would like to develop a career there. The alignment of different systems of the two places is actually very important. Mr. Chen talked about platforms and centers. Can you do more to further promote the alignment of the system, say for example professional services in terms of accounting, the legal sector as well as healthcare? Thank you, President. And I thank Mr. Lee for his question. I agree with what Mr. Lee said. In the development of the GBA, we're talking about one country, two systems, three tax jurisdictions, as well as three different currencies. So in order to better develop GBA, we have to first forge a platform for cooperation and connection. That's why I've always said that the first thing we need to do is the flow of capital, information, and people as well as goods. We will continue to put in more efforts to foster greater flow of people, goods, systems, rules, and information. In relation to specifics, well, the different policy bureaus will, under the respective purview, work gradually to remove barriers and promote connectivity and connection to enhance the overall development of the GBA. Mr. Lo Wai Kwok. In his answer to a question, the Secretary talked about the services provided by the Guangdong ETO. But he has not mentioned anything specific to help us better understand services needed by Hong Kong people in the GBA and how the service network could be expanded. You mentioned the Guangdong ETO as the 3 liaison units. But regarding the GBA, well, the 9 cities cover a vast area. If there is no established liaison units in these cities, would you expedite the establishment of such units to better serve Hong Kong people? I thank the member for the question. Of course, we would like to strengthen our promotion in GBA. That's why under the Guangdong ETO, we will establish a GBA Development Promotion Center. The center will provide information assistance to Hong Kong people and enterprises. The center will be established in Guangzhou. But there is strategic cooperation with the Hong Kong TDC, Invest Hong Kong, as well as various organizations. Regarding the Guangdong ETO, it covers 5 provinces, including Guangdong. And this, of course, covers the 9 mainland GBA cities. Promotion work has been ongoing. In the past 2-3 years, such work has been put in place, and we will strengthen our work in the future. What has been answered? It seems that the Secretary has not directly answered my question. What I'd like to know is that for the Guangdong ETO, if there is no service point in the 9 mainland GBA cities, one should be set up instead of using an indirect approach. So for the 9 cities in the Pearl River Delta, I hope that there will be such service units available. That's exactly what we have in mind. Our first step is to set up one in Guangzhou. We work with other bodies to provide more services. If necessary, we will expand our network of service units. Mr. Gary Zhang, just now the Secretary talked about GBA is the best entry point for integration into national development. Well, things that have stood still because of the epidemic, but still we can start with the preparation work. Will he proceed with any liaison work, any preparations to help Hong Kong residents without the home return permit to enter these cities on the mainland so that we can leverage on the opportunities posed by our proximity to the mainland and the connection with the rest of the world? Promoting flow of people within the GBA is a key area of our work. Hong Kong residents in the GBA aside, we also have some ideas about foreign residents living in these areas. We'll see how we can strengthen our service to them. Say, for example, facilitation measures in entry and exit of the areas if you don't hold valid mainland travel documents. Ms. Eunice Yung, I am glad to hear that in the policy address that there is the steering group on integration into national development. I hope that there will be a better flow of people, goods, capital, and information. I have received calls for assistance saying that dentists who would like to practice on the mainland have encountered various difficulties. And I've also heard that there are dedicated teams for attracting businesses and talents. But that's more for attracting talents into Hong Kong. But what about the other way around? Professionals and talents who would like to work in the GBA, what assistance can you give them, Secretary? I thank Ms. Yong for her question. One of our work action plan is to foster better flow of people. In terms of professional services, we aim to achieve more professional recognitions of various professions. It is an ongoing work. We're working on legal services, construction and related services. Qualification recognition and registration have been put in place. We would like to enable Hong Kong professionals to develop in the GBA, and we will make more arrangements in our discussions.
Question number 5, Dr. Tan Yue Heng. Thank you, Mr. President. The state president, in his speech on the 1st of July this year, mentioned that Hong Kong's distinctive status and advantages must be maintained and remarked that the central government fully supports Hong Kong in its effort to expand and facilitate its exchanges with the world, as well as actively dovetail itself with the national strategies such as high-quality Belt and Road development. In this connection, will the government inform this council, 1, of Hong Kong's contribution in its participation in the investment and financing for the infrastructure projects in the Belt and Road countries and regions since it became a member of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, or AIIB, in 2017, and what plans are put in place to enhance the degree of its contribution? 2, whether it has considered conducting a review on the government's achievements in respect of its efforts in the past 3 years to dovetail with the Belt and Road development and formulating an upgraded version of its implementation plans for dovetailing with the initiatives, if so, of the details, if not the reasons for that. And 3, whether it has considered helping the Belt and Road countries to establish different types of economic development zones by copying the successful experience of the mainland in establishing the zones, as well as initiating some distinctive mainland Hong Kong Belt and Road countries projects on economic cooperation and development zones so as to facilitate Hong Kong's industrial restructuring? If so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development. Thank you, Mr. President. The government of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region has been earnestly promoting the community to advance Hong Kong's participation in and contribution to the Belt and Road Initiative by signing agreements with countries, taking forward collaborations in the areas of trade, investment, international finance, and cultural exchanges, as well as promoting BRNR project participation by Hong Kong enterprises and professional services. We've endeavored to leverage Hong Kong's advantages to meet our country's needs. Our efforts are fully recognized by the central authorities. In proactively pursuing the cause, the Hong Kong SAR government will continue to make the fullest of our unique advantages under the one country, two systems. With the dual circulation development strategy of our nation and the support of the National 14th Five-Year Plan, we will proactively align with the 14th Five-Year Plan and better integrate Hong Kong into the national development. Taking the opportunities brought about by the Belt and Road Initiative, we will actively become a participant in domestic circulation and a facilitator in international circulation. We'll give play to Hong Kong's role as the functional platform for Belt and Road and endeavor to enhance the community's understanding of the initiatives. My reply to the three parts of the question raised by Dr. Tan Yue Heng is as follows. 1. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, or AIIB, commenced operation in 2016 with a mission to enhancing connectivity amongst Asian economies and fostering sustainable economic development through investment in infrastructure. Since Hong Kong became a non-sovereign member of the AIIB in 2017, we've actively participated in the work of the bank. Apart from actively attending meetings and discussions relevant to the AIIB's work on governance and other aspects in our capacity as one of the governors, we've also seconded staff to the AIIB to support its work on legal, financial, administration, and human resources management aspects. We made a $10 million contribution to the AIIB Project Preparation Special Fund in 2019 to assist low-income countries in carrying out technical preparation work for pursuing infrastructure projects. In addition, Hong Kong's professional services providers have over the years provided procurement services amounting to over $10 million, covering auditing, consultancy, information technology, staff development, etc. to the AIIB. Since its commencement of operation, the AIIB has successfully approved 190 projects, assisting over 30 economies to build facilities of energy, transportation, health, water supply, and education. In future, we'll continue to leverage on Hong Kong's strengths as an international financial and business center to provide support to the AIIB's work, and that includes continuing the discussion with AIIB on ways to make good use of Hong Kong's advantage to facilitate this treasury management work, encouraging the bank to raise funds through Hong Kong's capital markets, such as issuing bonds, and promoting Hong Kong's world-class professional services, such as accounting, legal, mediation, and arbitration services to the AIIB projects. As for parts 2 and 3 of the reply, regarding the question, the Hong Kong SAR government has adopted a whole government approach in taking forward the Belt and Road Initiative. Relevant bureaus and departments are committed to formulating measures in different areas in pursuing the initiatives, including in expanding international economic and trade networks, promoting collaboration in projects, participation by Hong Kong enterprises, professional services, strengthening government-to-government collaboration, and enhancing policy coordination with the central authorities. From time to time, the Commerce and Economic Development Bureau had reported progress to the Commerce and Industry Panel of the LegCo and heeded members' views. The Chief Executive has just announced in his policy address the establishment of a steering group on integration into the national development. The CEDB will render full support to the related work of the group by taking an overall review of the work progress by different bureaus and departments in pursuing the initiative since its announcement in 2013. We will strategically plan the next stage of work on this basis so as to formulate measures to enhance cooperation with Belt and Road related countries in areas of trade, commerce, professional services, cultural exchanges, with a view to better supporting our nation's Belt and Road development.
In the coming year, with gradual resumption of social and economic activities, the CEDB will actively roll out different initiatives and enhance the G2G collaboration, including co-organizing seminars or webinars at the government level with BNR-related countries to promote the participation of more enterprises and professionals from different sectors. We'll continue to establish and make use of exchange and collaboration platforms, including the annual Belt and Road Summit, exchange and sharing sessions for enterprises, and project matching meetings, etc., to facilitate Hong Kong enterprises and professional services to seize BNR opportunities. Conditions permitting, we will resume business and professional missions to Belt and Road related countries such as ASEAN and the Middle East. Besides, we will proactively explore with the Ministry of Commerce on organizing further joint missions. I'd like to thank Dr. Tan Yue Heng for raising the successful experience of mainland's economic development zones. The Hong Kong SAR government has indeed successfully engaged the Ministry of Commerce in identifying 5 overseas economic trade and cooperation zones in ASEAN as pilots. They are Malaysia-China Kuantan Industrial Park in Malaysia, Thailand-China Rayong Industrial Park in Thailand, Kawasan Industry Terpadu, Indonesia-China in Indonesia, and CFLD Karawang New Industry City in Indonesia, and Saranuthiville Special Economic Zone in Cambodia. Hong Kong enterprises are encouraged to capitalize on these zones for BNR business development. In this connection, a memorandum of understanding on enhancing exchanges and cooperation and promoting high-quality development of ETCZs was signed between Hong Kong government and the Ministry of Commerce in September last year. In addition, the CEDB and the Commercial Office of the Economic Affairs Department of the Liaison Office of the CPG in the Hong Kong SAR had jointly organized 2 webinars and an online-focused networking session, which introduced the general business environment and development situation of the concerned zones and lined them up with Hong Kong enterprises. Looking ahead, pursuant to the principle of government providing guidance, enterprises taking the lead, and market-oriented operation, the Hong Kong SAR government will continue to encourage Hong Kong enterprises to invest and set up businesses at economic trade and cooperation zones and strengthen their interfacing. At the same time, the CDB will again jointly organize with the Commercial Office of the CPGLO in the Hong Kong SAR an online exchange session on zones in end of November this year. It will highlight the latest development, related operation arrangements and supporting facilities at Long Jiang Industrial Park in Vietnam, PT Indonesia Morowali Industrial Park in Laos, Vientiane, Setsita Development Zone, with a view to encouraging Hong Kong enterprises to cooperate with more Belt and Road countries and ETCZs to share and build on Belt and Road opportunities. Thank you. Dr. Tan Yue Heng. Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the Secretary for his reply. I just have one question. The Belt and Road Initiative consists of the 21st century Silk Road and the Marine Economic Belt. Basically, its focus is on. It seems that the focus is on the economic belt on sea, not on land. And there are more and more activities along this new Silk Road economic belt. According to Presidency, Xinjiang is no longer in the periphery of the country. It's rather the core of this initiative. So my question is whether the Hong Kong government has any participating projects in Xinjiang, which is the core of the economic belt. Thank you for the question. Next year, we're going to lead a delegation to Xinjiang on a duty visit. This is also one initiative under the Belt and Road Initiative. We also have another delegation to the Middle East to explore room for further economic cooperation with a new economy. So that's a new thinking adopted under this BRI. We're going to collaborate with the Ministry of Commerce so as to organize further joint missions so that we can contribute to the country's BNRI development. Dr. Hui Simon Lee. Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the Secretary as well My question relates to the question just asked by Dr. Tan. It seems that our focus is on Southeast Asia and ASEAN countries, and it is only reasonable because we enjoy unique advantages. However, we also have projects focusing on Central Asia. I see a very big difference between these projects in Central Asia and in Southeast Asia. In Central Asia, the investment projects mostly comprise of energy-related ones, and I have received calls for assistance from Hong Kong enterprises. They've encountered difficulties in investing in Central Asia projects, and they're not able to cope with the geographical challenges in Central Asia. So my question is, in relation to investments in Central Asia, can the Hong Kong government provide more support to Hong Kong enterprises? Secretary, thank you, member, for the questions. In relation to investment in Central Asia, the Hong Kong SAR government will lead a joint mission to Saudi Arabia and UAE to explore new opportunities. And we also set up an ETO in the Middle East, which will be tasked with all relevant businesses in the Middle East and Central Asia. You will find all relevant information on the BNRI website. It also includes the information about 37 suppliers and 680 infrastructure service providers. This will help enterprises get more information for an informed decision on making investments in Central Asia. And the commerce and trade offices in our country's consular offices will be happy to provide assistance for prospective investors in Hong Kong. Mr. Sunny Tan, I'm delighted to learn about the initiatives rolled out in the Chief Executive's policy address. For example, a steering group on integration into the national development chaired by the Chief Executive will be set up to plan for better integration with into a national development. In fact, we have many industrialists in Hong Kong setting up their factory bases in the mainland, so they have built a very good network. My question is whether the Hong Kong SAR government will roll out more measures to enhance the interaction and collaboration between Hong Kong investors, Hong Kong enterprises and ASEAN and Belt and Road country counterparts to further facilitate this development. Secretary, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, member, for the questions. As I said in the reply, we're going to lead a number of missions to ASEAN countries to explore opportunities in a number of industrial parks. And the ETOs in these places will liaise with the chambers of commerce in these countries so as to provide an important information link and cooperation opportunities for the Hong Kong enterprises. For example, after my visit to Cambodia, I got in touch with the Chamber of Commerce there, and the Hong Kong Chamber of Commerce also provided us, the Chamber of Commerce provided us with a lot of information for further exchange. We also provided assistance to Hong Kong enterprises in Cambodia. We'd like to lead a business delegation to further visit these industrial parks in ASEAN countries. And there would also be some matching meetings with Hong Kong investors there so as to enhance exchange and collaboration and to help Hong Kong investors set up their operations in the Belt and Road countries. There will also be cooperation at the consular level so that different channels can be developed to help Hong Kong investors set up operations in these BNR countries. The ETO offices will be expanded in scope. In other words, their functions will be enhanced. Basically, they will step up liaison with Hong Kong enterprises and investors overseas so as to contribute to making more investments in BNR-related countries by Hong Kong investors. Mr. Ronald Chan, the main reply sets out Hong Kong SAR government's work under the BNR initiative. There are a number of Islamic countries along the belt, and they are related to the infrastructure projects. In 2014, 15, and 17, 3 batches of sukuk were issued, totaling $3 billion. And we also have a 10-year tenor sukuk denominated in US dollar rate with AAA plus rating. In the end, only 57 were issued to Asian investors and only 18 for Islamic countries. That shows our advantages. So we have a role to play in this regard. My question is, what is the government's thinking in taking forward the development in this regard? Who would take this question? Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. Thank you, Mr. President. I thank member for the questions. I agree with the honourable member that many Islamic countries are included under the BNRI. So in terms of Hong Kong as a financing platform, we play an important role. To facilitate development of Islamic bonds or sukuk in Hong Kong, we have adopted a number of measures. For example, like the member said, we issued Islamic bonds before, and in order to improve this platform in 2013 and 2014, we amended the legislation to provide a similar tax structure for sukuk vis-a-vis traditional bonds. At present, Hong Kong is a financing platform for the issuance of sukuk. We have the legal system and the tax structure ready such that we are ready for the issuance of different types of Islamic bonds. And in fact, we have different Islamic financial products in Hong Kong, including Islamic fund and also business window for Islamic investments. And looking ahead, we will continue to promote Hong Kong's strengths and advantages to attract more investments from these countries, including market individuals who are interested in taking part in Islamic financing activities. Mr. Yim Kong. The national development strategies continue to provide more development opportunities for Hong Kong, and that Hong Kong can participate and contribute to the BNR initiative and collaborate with more partners globally. So my question is, apart from encouraging Hong Kong enterprises to go global, does the Hong Kong government have any incentives so that BNRI enterprises can come to Hong Kong and make investments, such as financial incentives or financial support? Secretary, thank you. That's a very good question. The Chief Executive in his policy address has proposed the establishment of offices for attracting strategic enterprises, OASIS, and also a relevant advisory committee to explore how we can attract strategic enterprises to facilitate the long-term development in Hong Kong. And tailor-made plans will be devised for these enterprises, including support in the form of land, taxation, financing, and also facilitation measures for visa applications for their children and family members. We're going to identify certain strategic enterprises, including those along the BNR, to come to Hong Kong and set up operations. This will be completed within this year. We're going to drop a list by the end of the year. So like the honorable member said, tailor-made plans were devised for enterprises to come to Hong Kong and contribute to the long-term economic development here.
Last question seeking an oral reply, Dr. Chow Mun Kong. It is learned that the government intends to strengthen its communications with district grassroots organizations and groups in order to unite different sectors of the community to work together to solve problems. Regarding the support for community organizations and groups, will the government inform this council, 1. Whether the government put in place dedicated funds or subsidy schemes in the past 5 years to provide the following categories of organizations or groups with subsidies to launch district and grassroots services. 1. District grassroots organizations. 2. Agriculture and fisheries organizations. 3. Clansmen associations. 4. Youth groups. 5. Women's groups. 6. Associations of Hong Kong residents in the mainland. 7. Social welfare organizations established before Hong Kong's return to the motherland. And 8. International organizations. If so, of the details as well as the amounts of funding granted annually to each category of organizations or groups and their percentages in the total amount of funding. 2. Whether it would consider establishing a regular liaison mechanism, formulating support policies and launching new and dedicated subsidy schemes for district grassroots organizations, agriculture and fisheries organizations, clansmen associations, youth groups, women's groups, and associations of Hong Kong residents in the mainland, as well as increasing subsidies for such organizations or groups with a view to more effectively implementing the targets of strengthening communications with district grassroots organizations and groups and setting up a systematic network of volunteers as proposed by the Chief Executive in his election manifesto. If so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. And 3. As there are views pointing out that quite a number of the 6 categories of organizations or groups mentioned in number 2, as well as emerging organizations or groups, are unable to obtain the necessary resources for launching services. Whether the government will ensure that such organizations or groups, particularly those which are in line with the government's governance philosophy, can obtain the necessary resources. If so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. Secretary for Home and Youth Affairs. President, the government is strongly committed to strengthening communications with district grassroots organizations and groups and working together with different sectors of the community to promote government policies with a results-oriented approach to tackle social problems in a pragmatic manner. The organizations and groups mentioned in the question, including district grassroots organizations, agriculture and fisheries organizations, clansmen associations, youth groups, women's groups, associations of Hong Kong residents in the mainland, social welfare organizations, and international organizations, involve a number of policy bureaus and departments. In consultation with the bureaus and departments concerned, my consolidated reply is as follows. The government has put in place subsidy schemes and dedicated funds to provide district grassroots organizations, women's groups, and youth groups with subsidies to launch various services. For example, support services for ethnic minorities and mental health initiatives provided by district grassroots organizations, projects for promoting women's development organized by women's groups, and youth exchange, internship, entrepreneurship, and life planning projects organized by youth groups. Details of the funding in the past 5 years are set out in the annex. In addition, welfare services operated by non-governmental organizations or NGOs and groups, including elderly care services, rehabilitation services, services for young people, and family and child welfare services, etc., are mainly funded by the government. By adopting a services-based approach, the Social Welfare Department, or the SWD, provides different types of subvention and subsidy to the NGOs operating welfare services for serving those in need. In the past 5 years, SWD's allocation of recurrent subventions to NGOs are tabulated below. The member suggested that the government establish a regular liaison mechanism, formulate support policies, and launch subsidy schemes for the 6 categories of groups, namely district grassroots organizations, agriculture and fisheries organizations, clansmen associations, youth groups, women's groups, and associations of Hong Kong residents in the mainland. All along, the government has been working in the best interests of Hong Kong people by collaborating with various groups and organizations, while optimizing and rallying the resources and efforts of all sectors to promote government policies, with a view to meeting the public aspiration in a practical manner for the well-being of the community. In addition to providing resources to relevant groups and organizations as appropriate, bureaus and departments also communicate and cooperate with the groups and organizations concerned in different ways to provide appropriate policy support. In terms of welfare services, in order to cater for the ever-changing service demands of society, the Labour and Welfare Bureau and the SWD review publicly funded services and projects from time to time and provide different types of subvention and subsidy to the NGOs operating welfare services, facilitating the NGOs to not only continuously enhance and improve existing services, but also develop innovative modes of welfare service provision to meet the latest development needs of society and keep abreast of the times. In order to support the agriculture and fisheries sector and promote modernization and sustainable development of the industries, the Environment and Ecology Bureau and the Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Departments have been maintaining close liaison with and providing technical training and financial support to the agriculture and fisheries sector. For example, in order to support the sector in the application of technology and intensification of production and enhance their overall competitiveness, the government has established the Sustainable Fisheries Development Fund and Sustainable Agricultural Development Fund with $500 million each. In respect of youth, young people are Hong Kong's future. Hong Kong will prosper only when its young people thrive. The government attaches great importance to education and youth development. For example, the HYAB already provides recurrent subvention to youth uniformed groups established by the community to support the provision of informal education and training to young people, which serves to help them foster positive values, strengthen leadership skills, and attain whole person development. Meanwhile, the HYAB and the Youth Development Commission have launched funding schemes to subsidize eligible NGOs to take forward projects regarding youth exchange, internship, entrepreneurship, and life planning, etc. As for women's groups, the government announced in the Chief Executive's 2022 policy address that the annual funding for the Women's Commission would be increased by 2.5 times, from $4 million to $10 million in the next 3 years, for setting up a Women Empowerment Fund to promote women development. Women's groups can apply for the fund to organize activities and programs to support women in balancing job and family commitments and unleashing their potential. The Home Affairs Department, or the HAD, also maintains liaison with clansmen's associations and has been providing funding support to them for organizing activities to promote clansman culture under the Know Your Homeland Clansmen Association Subsidy Scheme since 2018. To commemorate the 25th anniversary of Hong Kong's return to the motherland, the HAD especially organized the Clansman Culture exhibition in July this year to enhance the public's understanding of and sense of belonging to the nation. Regarding the associations of Hong Kong residents in the mainland offices of the HKSAR government not only attach great importance to maintaining close liaison with them, but also help convey their views and appeals to relevant mainland authorities and take necessary follow-up actions. The mainland offices, in collaboration with the associations of Hong Kong residents in the mainland, organize various activities such as trade seminars to support Hong Kong residents and offer support and sponsorship to those activities, such as annual dinners, seminars, and orientation activities for universities as appropriate. In fact, in addition to the aforementioned support for these specific categories of groups, the government also has other allocation for application by different district organizations and groups according to different policy objectives. For example, the Community Involvement Program implemented by the HAD is open for application by eligible organizations for funding support to organize projects featuring local characteristics and popular festive celebrations, as well as cultural, artistic, and recreational activities, to foster closer communication and promote district harmony. Many of the grantees are district grassroots organizations, clansmen associations, youth groups, and women's groups. The aforementioned are just a few examples of the government support and communications with district organizations and groups. The Under-Secretary for Labour and Welfare and I stand ready to provide further information on the members' supplementary questions, especially on those relating to home and youth affairs, as well as labour and welfare issues. Thank you, President. Dr. Chairman Kwong. Thank you, Secretary, for your main reply. I can see from the main reply that the grassroots organizations and youth groups, women's groups, and agriculture and fisheries organizations, after the reunification, every year the government only gave them meager subsidy. There were only $342 million given for the past 5 years. Now, for the social welfare and international organizations set up before the reunification for year 2021 and 22, the subsidy only accounted for $21.4 billion, and they account for only 1.42% of the total subsidy amount. I'm very disappointed. I know this has nothing to do with the current term government. So does the HYAB have any future plan to turn around the unfair subsidy amount so that more members of the public can enjoy social welfare services from community organizations? President, as I've mentioned in the main reply, we attach a lot of importance to grassroots organizations, clansmen associations, youth groups, women's groups, and Hong Kong residents in the mainland's groups. We have been in close liaison with them. So after the improved governance system, these associations have formed part of our legislature, and we have a closer interaction with them. Under the HYAB, we have the Know Your Homeland Klansmen Association Subsidy Scheme. So besides holding the Klansman Culture Exhibition in July, in the policy address, it is also the weekend community bazaar is also mentioned. This is a new scheme. So through these activities, we can work more closely with the organizations I mentioned in the question. Also, through community involvement projects, that is the projects under the HYAB, application is made available for these organizations to apply for funding to conduct activities. Under Secretary for Labor and Welfare. Thank you, President. The Social Welfare Department adopts a service-based principle to subsidize NGOs in provision of welfare services, including the lump sum grant system. So the subsidy is provided for the target users rather than the organizations themselves. Now the organizations would submit tender proposals to the government. We welcome any NGOs in applying for the subsidy. Thank you. Mr. So Chang Wing. Thank you, President. The government's public service resources are out of touch with community implementation. For example, in my association, we have some 220 subsidiary organizations and some 17 volunteering groups. Since the reunification with the motherland, we have been cooperating with the SAR government in its governance. We have been serving grassroots people for a very long time. Yet, all the years, we have only been able to apply for $35.81 million from the government, covering home affairs, district affairs, and recreational activities, and so on. That's including the fund for conducting festive activities to celebrate the National Day and the Victory Day. Now, for year 2021 and 22, the amount of social welfare subsidies amounts to some $100 billion. And $20 billion were given to NGOs. Still, none of it has reached our association. We have to pay out of our own pockets and ask for donations to conduct activities on our own. So my question is, will the new term government still treat us this way and only ask for help when there is the need? Thank you. The government attaches a lot of importance to the contribution of grassroots organizations, youth groups, clansmen associations, and women's groups. We appreciate your community work. There is no doubt as to the close relationship, close partnership we enjoy. It is evident in the Chief Executive's PA consultation session. There were several sessions dedicated to consulting clansmen's associations and grassroots organizations. It shows that the government attaches a lot of importance to your views. We also thank the community organizations for staying true to your mission to serve the community under the COVID-19 epidemic. Like Mr. So said, you are really contributing to the community through financial contribution and action. So we truly hope to partner up with community organizations to address the social issues. That's why there is the Know Your Homeland Klansmen Association Subsidy Scheme with Klansmen Associations, and for grassroots organizations, we have the community involvement schemes. There are different schemes under the HAD to share resources with the community organizations and to take forward community work. As a woman, I have to say that I am very grateful for women's groups' community work. As a result, under the policy address, a new Women Empowerment Fund will be established so that women's groups can apply for funding to better support their activities. Now, may I invite the Undersecretary for Labour and Welfare to supplement. Thank you, Mr. So, for your question. President, in terms of community services, we adopt a service-based approach. So the grassroots organizations would play the role as a liaison between the government and the service users. Now, in the future, when we take forward new services under the planning standard and guidelines, we welcome different bodies to submit the tender proposals to us so that we can diversify our services. Ms. Maggie Chan. Ms. Maggie Chan. Thank you, President. My question is, according to the Secretary, funding would be allocated to the Women's Commission, and the Women Empowerment Fund would be set up. So besides the fund, are there specific measures and KPIs to ensure that women's development are supported? As they mentioned just now, the Women Empowerment Fund only comprised of a meager sum. Secretary. President, the Women Empowerment Fund is one of the new measures proposed under the policy address for supporting the work of district women's groups. We will also collaborate with the Women's Commission to promote gender mainstreaming and so on. And we will continue to support the 4 task forces under the Women's Commission to further the interests of women. They are responsible for the 4 policy areas, that is creating a favorable environment for women, promotion and publicity, women empowerment and training, as well as women's health and support. So we will work closely together with women's groups to achieve the 4 objectives. And also we will further women's participation in government's advisory bodies and government organizations so as to encourage women to engage in public discourse and we will actively take forward the principle of gender mainstreaming so that in terms of when laying down policy, bureaus have to conduct gender assessments. So far, 1,300 policies have undergone this assessment. Mr. Bill Tang. President, the Secretary asked us to look at the annex. Well, I have to refer to the figures then. Last year, the SWD has subsidized $21.4 million. Now, the HAB had offered some $340 billion. Well, includes subsidizing the organizations to pay the rent. Well, the organizations only got very small premises, under 200 square feet, and it is not even sufficient for them to store anti-epidemic resources. As you said, the organizations are contributing in terms of money, the action, as well as the health. However, they only receive such a meager sum of resources. How is this fair? How can the government ensure that organizations of quality form part of the subsidizing system of the SWD? Undersecretary. Now, for those organizations with less experience but have a will to serve the community, to help them win the tender, we are conducting a seminar to brief those organizations on how to prepare a tender proposal, and also the government's tendering system. And also, the SWD would also introduce new items that the government would invite from the organizations. And also, the SWD would also prepare a list of items for potential tender applicants, so that new applicants would not make any omissions in their tender proposal. Thank you.
收到。
Government motions. Government bills. First reading. Pilotage Amendment Bill 2022. Second reading. Secretary for Transport and Logistics. President, I move the second reading of the Pilotage Amendment Bill 2022, or the bill. To ensure the safe navigation of vessels within Hong Kong waters, ships of 3,000 gross tonnage or over, ships of 1,000 tonnage or over carrying dangerous goods, and gas carriers of any gross tonnage are required to be under the pilotage of licensed pilots within the waters of Hong Kong. The Pilotage Ordinance, Cap 84, and its subsidiary legislation provide for the regulation of pilotage services in respect of the requirement for obtaining, upgrading, and renewal a pilot license, disciplinary proceedings of licensed pilots, pilotage dues allowed to be charged, location of pilot boarding station, as well as enforcement action conducted by the Marine Department, or MD. The bill, as presented to the Council for scrutiny, seeks to amend the ordinance and its subsidiary legislation in order to improve the arrangements for medical arrangements required of pilots and other existing practices, to adjust pilotage dues, and to make other miscellaneous amendments. First, on medical examination. Currently, apprentice pilots are required to be medically examined when they apply for pilot license. Under the ordinance, they are to be examined as to their physical and medical fitness by a medical officer appointed by the Director of Health, as well as the eyesight by an MD officer. A licensed pilot is to be subject to medical examination at least once in every 2 years, or at least once every year where the pilot has attained the age of 65 years old. Pilots have to work irregular hours. In order to facilitate pilots in making the medical examination requirements at regular intervals, we propose to amend the ordinance such that medical examination, as well as medical re-examination, can be carried out by a registered medical practitioner, including one in private practice in Hong Kong, following the relevant standard, to allow them greater flexibility in making medical appointments with registered medical practitioners to meet the medical requirement and re-examination requirements. And furthermore, we propose to specify clearly in the ordinance that the authority may exempt a pilot from the medical examination if he has within the previous 12 months submitted to a similar examination under a comparable standard, regardless of whether such examination is conducted in Hong Kong. Under the ordinance, the MD may provide such exemption to pilots applying for pilot license. We propose to extend this exemption to licensed pilots. Another proposal in the bill is pilotage dues adjustment. Pilotage dues are reviewed periodically by pilots and the shipping industry. Such fees are not government fees, and this time the proposal is to increase the dues by an average of 9.7%. Once the pilots and the shipping industry have come to an agreement, the government will amend the new dues through the pilotage dues order to put it into effect. Miscellaneous amendments. The bill will remove an obsolete reference in the ordinance and to facilitate the enforcement action of MD by empowering MD officers not below the rank of marine inspector to require a pilot to produce the pilot's license for inspection. President, the bill seeks to improve the ordinance to better meet the operational needs of the industry. We have consulted the panel on economic development and Pilotage Advisory Committee, which comprises shareholders of the shipping industry and pilotage sector. The proposals are supported by all. I hope members can support the bill for its early passage and implementation. With these remarks, I thank the President. I now propose to question you that the aforesaid bill be read the second time. In accordance with the rules of procedure, the second reading debate is adjourned and the bill is referred to the House Committee.
恢復
This Council resumes the second reading debate on the mainland judgments in civil and commercial matters reciprocal enforcement bill. Honourable Lam Sen Keung, Vice Chair of the Bills Committee, will first address the Council. Mr. Lam. President, the mainland judgments in civil and commercial matters reciprocal enforcement bill seeks to implement the REJ arrangement signed between the Hong Kong SAR government and the Supreme People's Court of the People's Republic of China on the 18th of January 2019, as well as to make corresponding amendments to the mainland judgment reciprocal enforcement ordinance cap 597. The Bills Committee has held 5 meetings to discuss the policy matters and also the clauses of the bill. In terms of policy matters, the members urged the administration to explain the difference between the existing ordinance and also cap 597 in terms of the mainland judgment registration system. We also discussed the impact on the stakeholders upon passage of the bill. Members urged the administration to mount publicity to various stakeholders in the community as well as other issues to enhance a better understanding of the bill. Because of the complexity of the bill and also the extensive scope of application, members expressed concerns about the preparedness of the judiciary and the legal profession in relation to the implementation of the bill. As to the clauses, members expressed concerns over the difference between effective judgment in this bill and also the final and conclusive judgment adopted in cap 597. We also discussed the applicability, the excluded judgment, the details on applying to register mainland judgments, the registration time limit, and also how to compute the registration time limit, the service of registration order, and the registrable mainland judgment. Members also expressed concerns about the requirement for setting aside the registration, the time limit for setting aside the registration, the jurisdictional requirement, the setting aside of registration of judgment, the enforcement of which manifestly is incompatible with the Hong Kong policy body, and the possible abuse of the registration. And there are other concerns, like the registration mechanism may have impacts on the legal procedures, the equity law, and the restriction on bringing proceedings in respect of the same cause of action. The administration has made a response to members' comments, as well as legal advisors' input, and also two submissions received from the members of the public. The administration will move amendments to the bill. The Bills Committee has no objection, nor will we move any amendments. The Bills Committee has completed its work, and deliberation details are set out in the report circulated to the Council. President, the following is my personal comments regarding the bill. I urge members to support and pass the bill.